Hey everyone, it's Nina. This video today, I'm actually going to speak a little bit more about my deconditioning journey and the process that I've been going through. I have known about human design for over 3 years, and I would say I've been officially, consciously in my deconditioning experience for about 1 or 2 years, and my life has radically changed since I've really entered this experiment. So just to start off, give you guys a background if some of you are new to my channel. I am a 4/6 emotional manifestor. My solar plexus is super lit up. I have the 3536 and the 1222, and I have the 6447. Those are all of my channels. I have a split from my throat to my ajna. So I'm learning how to really communicate with my emotions up through to my throat, and I don't normally have access to really share my thoughts and my opinions because I have that split with the 23. So I'm reaching for that connecting gate. I love it when it's in transit and I have access to that. I'm super chatty, but in the meantime, when that's not in transit, I like to find other people who can bridge that split to help me communicate a little bit better. So to talk a little bit more about my deconditioning journey as a 4/6 emotional manifestor. So within the last few years, some pretty major things have happened. I'll just start off by saying I just wasn't happy with my life. I wasn't content with it. It wasn't necessarily the people around me. I mean, I guess it was in some ways because I wasn't really living in alignment with myself, but it was just like things weren't ever enough, and things just fell off, and I didn't know how to speak my truth. I didn't know how to stand in my own power, and I was really living a very conditioned manifestor life. I was running around acting like I was a manifesting generator, responding to everything, saying yes to everything, working crazy amounts of hours, doing things so that I could make money instead of coming from a place of emotional clarity with it and passion, and also being 34 and on the roof as a 4/6, things are a lot different. You know, I lived my life through a lot of trial and error the first 30 or so years of my life, and now that I'm on the roof, I'm really becoming more clear about what is correct for me and what feels right for me. So just very unhappy with the way that I was living my life, and I went down this journey of doing lots of plant medicine, thinking it would heal me and fix all my problems in life, when in reality it was just a way to expand my consciousness, but the real work needed to be done outside of ceremony and in this three-dimensional reality. And this is where human design really stepped in and helped me to see the world in my life through a different lens, and gave me an opportunity to say, maybe there's another way of living life. And so when I first read my chart, I was like, no, this isn't me. I'm not a manifestor. And I kind of set it aside for a couple months or longer, and then I came back to it and I was like, well, maybe I am a manifestor, and I didn't really know what that meant. So when I had my first reading, I cried because it was like someone saw me, like they saw my blueprint, and they saw parts of myself that I had suppressed and had hated on for so long, and that I felt like were very alien. And because I had spent my whole life hiding things from people, not informing them, feeling resistance from people were constantly trying to control me, the whole manifestor story. And so when someone gave me that first chart reading, it was just like blew my mind that I could accept myself and be myself. And that was just like a very basic, first layer of an onion that was kind of being peeled back. That was like, all right, you don't need to hold on to this other way of being because it feels not very good. And especially living in a left world as a quad right, constantly planning and scheduling my life and my days, and I'm really just meant to live in flow. And I have experienced that this past year, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but it's just a completely different way of living. And so I studied with another 4/6 emotional, or another 6-line emotional manifestor for the next year or so, and just kind of picked his his mind a little bit and asked him how he lived his life, and was kind of mentored a little bit by him. And then the following year, I decided to do a Living Your Design course with Ben Tor and Tom Pfeiffer, and then did the Rave ABC class the following year after that. And quite honestly, like during that time period, it just radically changed my entire life. I was engaged, and I ended a relationship that I was in for over 5 years. And I ended up leaving a job that I was at for 2.5 years with nothing lined up, and packed all my stuff up in a storage unit and bought a one-way ticket to Mexico. So that was kind of like a really big leap for me, for someone who needed to always control everything, but it felt right. And that was the first time where I was really tapped in and present with my rightness as a quad right, and I listened to it. And it was almost like I had no choice, because the longer that I am in my deconditioning process, it's like you can't not listen to your body and where it's leading you. You can't not listen to what is hitting you on a cellular level, and otherwise you just know something's not right. And because I lived my life in such a wrong way, like out of alignment, that when I started to be more in flow, I was like, wow, like I want more of this. And I just kept chasing after it. And it wasn't just human design. I was doing a lot of Joe Dispenza meditations for like 2 months straight. I was meditating 2 or 3 hours a day on like this ideal life. And this is where I really let go of the job and decided to go to Mexico and travel for a while. So, once I did that, I arrived in Mexico and I stayed in Tulum for about a month and a half. And that was when I really experienced flow, because I didn't have work. I was able to meet people. My 4th line loved it. And my 6th line was just a complete observer. And through this experience of traveling in another country, like you really get to know yourself. And alongside with human design, I was also doing therapy with someone who does the Teal Swan completion process, and then doing an online trauma course with Teal Swan. And that was extremely impactful to do hand in hand while being 2 or 3 years into my experience or experiment with human design, because you have such more of an expanded awareness, especially as a 6th line on the roof. I feel like, you have this expanded awareness of yourself, and you're able to be more of the observer and not get too attached to things. And so as I learned to work with my emotional authority as well, and my emotional waves, it's a lot easier for me to work through big emotions that are coming up. And this trip was not an easy trip. I know a lot of people may have been watching my travels and being like, wow, she's seeing all these amazing things, and she's meeting all these people and she gets to travel. And it's like, well, I would say 30% of the time I was, enjoying all of the adventures and traveling and seeing beautiful waterfalls in different parts of the country. And the rest of the time I was going through really, really intensive inner work and therapy, where I was just like reaching the depth of like pain and trauma within my body that I had suppressed for a really long time. And it felt so right for me where I was at in my deconditioning process, because I was ready and I was prepared emotionally and mentally to look at those things within myself. And so it just took me to another level of healing as I went through my process. And I will say, being in another country really teaches you about yourself and really grounds you and helps you to see the contrast of like what feels best for you and what doesn't. And so throughout my travels, I began to see where I shapeshifted with my open G in every location I went to. I bought different clothes and ate different foods based on like what location I was in and the people that I was around. A lot of fears came up with my open spleen. And so I learned how to be better at distinguishing between what was like a mental fear or was I picking up fear from other people around me, or like what was a real fear in my travels, and learned how to tune more into my body to say, what feels like this is an actual threat, or this is something that I can do or not do, or push past this fear, or just say, hey, I'm just gonna slow down. So in my travels, I learned that it's okay to say no. Even though I'm traveling in all these different countries or doing all these things, it doesn't mean I have to see everything. And so I had to let go of that FOMO and say, even though I'm scared to do this, I'm not going to force myself to do it because my body is telling me something differently. So learning how to tap into and listening to my actual body was another part of this deconditioning process of getting out of the head and really seeing how much my mind was trying to control everything. So for example, I'd be like, okay, I need to work out because I haven't worked out in a while, or I need to eat this healthy food because it's healthy for me. And it's my mind saying all these things that I need to do. And I'm like, yeah, these are healthy for me. But then my body's like completely exhausted, or my body just wants to eat something that, you know, may not be considered healthy, but if it's telling me to eat it, like, I need to eat it, because otherwise I'm not going to digest it very well, because there's some part of it that's resisting it. And so I really learned how to distinguish between where my mind was really trying to control things and to really intuitively trust my own body in telling me what it needs, especially listening to my emotional authority as well. And my strongest cognition is feeling too. So a lot of these things are at play. And then also with like quad rightness too, eating when I'm hungry and just trusting that it's okay to eat whenever I want throughout the day when I need it, based on the amount of energy that I'm expending every single day. So that was really big for me. And also my sacral, just allowing myself to rest. There were days where I just laid in bed and did nothing, even though I was like, well, I need to go do this because I need to travel here and do this and make the most of my time. And I learned how to just turn that off and say, no, like, my body needs to rest. And so a lot of it was sacral deconditioning, even 3 years in as a manifestor, you know, and then with an open root, like feeling that pressure to go out and do things and to be productive, and really learning to listen to that and just honor my body. And that's so difficult as a non-sacral being, to not go and do things when you've been conditioned your entire life to just do. And, you know, like I said, 3 years into this deconditioning process, I'm still finding parts of my sacral that needs some extra love and it needs rest. And I'm really learning that I cannot push my body like I used to. It's like, as you go farther in your deconditioning process, the body just revolts because it knows on a cellular level, like, what is correct for you. And I'm just laughing because I used to go for 5 or 6 mile runs and then go do an hour and a half long intensive Ashtanga yoga class, and, you know, wake up the next day and do CrossFit or go for another run or do some crazy workout. And it was just like constant all the time. And I pushed my body so much the first 30 years of my life because my mind was trying to control everything. I was trying to be like everyone else. I was conditioned in so many ways. And now that I'm older, I'm healthier. I feel better physically. And it's, even though I know that I can go push myself and go really hard and do all the things that I used to, I don't want to. Like, I don't feel like I need to. I don't feel like I need to push my body that much, because my open heart was just trying to prove to everyone, like, look how strong I am, look how worthy I am, look at how special I am because I can do this, or because I work out, or my body looks like this. It was like just constantly seeking for that approval or that worthiness, and that it was like, if I look this certain way, or if I can do these certain things, people will like me or they'll want to be around me. And that was why I did a lot of those things. That was a huge part of my deconditioning process with my completely open heart in the beginning. And it's been a process to really let go of that and just trust my body and say, my body's going to look like the way it is because I'm listening to it and I'm not pushing it, and I'm not, you know, pushing past my energetic limits. And as a manifestor, I'm honoring my rest cycles, and I'm not consuming my mind or consuming things that are going to take away my energy. And especially being on the roof as a 6 line, it's become so clear to me, like, what I want to give my energy to and what and who is sucking my energy. And so being in Mexico, I was able to see all of these things, and it was just this huge experiment for me. And the final couple of weeks that I was in Mexico, I did the Spanish immersion course, and it meant that I stayed with a host for the time, and I stayed in a room, and I was at the mercy of a woman who would make my meals every single day, and I was at the mercy of the school, and being on a structured schedule, and being someone who, a quad right, who is learning to be in flow. My digestion is indirect light, which means that I don't really eat much during the day. I find that works best for me, and I eat whenever I feel hungry, and then it changes from day to day based on my mental and my physical output. And so it was difficult to have to get up early to work out or meditate or do things, and then force myself to drink a smoothie or have breakfast when I really wasn't hungry, because it was the correct thing to do, or I had to go around this schedule that was set for me. And then be in class all day. During the day when I'm in direct light and I digest information and food and everything much, much better at night, I was having to do this all during the day. So it became like this huge, huge overload for me. And so after about 2 weeks, my body finally said, okay, we got our lesson. We learned what doesn't work, and this whole thing does not work. So I ended up getting sick on the 3rd week. I woke up one morning just throwing up. And I really think it was because I just couldn't digest everything I was throwing at myself. The 3 to 6 hours of Spanish classes a day, not really being able to speak English at all. Like the entire time, no one spoke English. And so it was really overwhelming for me to process. And all of it was happening during the day. So it was just too much for me. And that was kind of my cue to say, oh, okay, it's time for me to leave here. My body is giving me a big indication. And I have gate 5 in an undefined sacral, and it's my conscious earth. And I was staying with a woman who I actually did a reading for in Spanish, and she was a generator with the 15-5. And so it was like I was constantly being sucked into her schedule and her flow, and it just totally threw me off. And I just became more aware of the dynamics between that specific channel of having gate 5 and being pulled into someone else's rhythm with a 5-15. And that was super challenging for me, that so much to the point where, like, if I know somebody has that full channel, I may limit my time around them, or just make sure that I have space away from them so I'm not getting caught up in their flow. And also just being around a sacral being who would just be confused, because I would say, I need to go lay down and rest. And they feel like, why? Like, what do you need to go lay down and rest for? And then even on the weekends, I would say, wow, I need to rest and recharge. I need to sleep in. I need to, do all these things. And like, they would just be confused. Like, why are you sleeping so much? Why are you resting so much? And then I would just come alive at night. And that's when my brain would turn on. And that's where I'd want to move my body. And that's when I would be hungry. But then everyone would be in bed for the night, or, I was just trying to figure out different ways to accommodate and do the schedule for other people. And my body, I've deconditioned it so much to the point where it's like, no, this is just not going to work. I know what works for me. And so that was a huge experiment for me that I'm so happy I was able to experience. And, all of these things that I've experienced, my 35, 36 is just absolutely loving. It felt very correct for me to go on this trip. I really waited it out and thought it through went through my emotional wave. So this experience of riding my wave to travel, it was so perfect, because I knew I was going to be having multiple experiences. And I'm finally at the point where I've been back in the US for a week or two, and I'm starting to integrate and kind of process these stories and kind of piece everything together and kind of make sense of everything that I've gone through. And there's just so much more. But I really wanted to share my experience with deconditioning. I think I've done another video on this, but this is a little bit more in depth about my latest travels over the last few months, and how much my journey has deepened because I have done the inner work and because I've been taking bigger and bigger leaps as I become more aligned with my own design, as I become more aware of how much my mind has been trying to control my life and control the way that I'm living. And it's so tricky because you don't even realize that, like, your mind is saying, okay, well, you need to do this. And you're like, yeah, this is right. In reality, you need to listen to your body or listen to your authority. And so it's just this ongoing process. And sometimes it's just like, man, this is never ending. But I will say I have never been happier. I have no idea what I'm doing next. I have no idea where I'm going to live. I have no idea what I'm going to do for work. I'm in the process of figuring that out, but I'm trusting it based on my design. And it feels so good. And as a manifestor, I'm fully in my peace. And it is such a beautiful thing to experience after going through all these challenges, or what other people would perceive as challenges. Because, my entire life was changed or has changed just in the course of the past year, because of human design, and because human design gave me the tools to look at aspects of myself that weren't working, where I was trying to fit myself in the box as a generator, a manifesting generator. And when I gave myself the space to step out of that identity and that role and try on something else, it felt so much more natural for me to step into the naturalness of who I am. And a relief, like such a relief to be like, wow, I don't have to pretend to be anyone else or anything else anymore. And it frees up so much energy mentally and emotionally, physically and spiritually, just like all around, to fall into aspects of yourself that you had been in conflict with. And it's really your greatest strength. It's what's natural for you. It's what's easy for you. And that has been like the biggest relief for me in all of my studies with human design. And I will say, after doing the Rave ABC course, it was so much information. I got to the point where I was like, this really is just mental stuff. And I do best by living my own experiment and living by my design. And so I'm in this period where I've done the first couple of years of studying design in depth and knowing the terminology and learning about the channels and the gates and all of that. And I've done who knows how many readings for people and learned a lot through that. But I get the most out of human design and learning it by living my own design and then speaking about my own design and my experiences with that. And that, I feel like, is more helpful than just regurgitating information that I have read from books and what Ra has said. And while all of that is valid and great, like, there's still a certain aspect of it that's missing because there isn't the lived experience, there isn't the embodiment of that trait or that skill or that part of your chart. And so that's why I love to speak with people who have similarities in my own chart, because I feel like I can resonate more and talk with them a little bit more, because I have that experience myself. Or when I hear other people talk about their chart, it's like there's more applicable uses or ways of understanding human design in different parts of a chart by listening to how someone has applied and lived it within their actual life. So that's all I think I have to say about my deconditioning process so far. I'm still in this big transition period, but I've never been more grounded and at home and happier within myself. And human design has played such a huge part in that with my deconditioning journey. And it has been tough. It has been the most challenging thing I've ever done, but it's been the most rewarding. And while I may not have the same friends and I don't have the same job, I don't have the same partner, like, everything is so different. It's like I had to tear down that foundation. I had to tear down that old rickety foundation that was built on something that wasn't me. And I had to go on a trip to find myself in a way. I kind of did my own Eat, Pray, Love trip across Mexico. And I feel like it's really just the beginning, and I'm already 3 years into my experiment. So I'm curious what everyone else's experiments have been like and what your experiences have been with human design and your deconditioning process. So leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'd love to converse and chat a little bit more. And if you like this video and you want to learn more, I have playlists with human design videos. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I have a huge urge, a manifestor urge, to completely rebrand and continue to add more human design to my YouTube channel. So stay tuned. I'm going to be posting more within the next few months, and it's going to be amazing. I'm super, super stoked about it. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.